The following discussion is for entertainment purposes only and should not be considered any kind of financial advice. All right, we're back for another episode of the Jump Pod, a podcast from the Unioverse that talks about all things Web3 and video gaming. I'm your co-host, Chris Albrecht, and with me, as always, is Grant. How you doing, Grant?
I'm doing well today. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. And we've got an awesome guest today. It's Sam Thapaliya. He's the founder of Zebek, the Zebek protocol, and a Web3 decentralization fanatic, enthusiast, proponent. Is that enough for you, Sam, or do I need more?
Extraordinaire.
There we go.
Why not? We'll throw that in there too.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. You guys are really kind.
So quick, Sam, before we begin, why don't you tell a little bit, the people just a little bit who you are, sort of what your background is, what your, that kind of stuff.
Oh yeah, for sure. So Sam Thapaliya, I was born in Nepal, came here 5 years ago, built a bunch of AI stuff, tried to build universal basic income coin like back in 2017, learned a lot, tried to start NFT Marketplace back in late 2020, tinker with a lot of projects. And last year I started Zebek. Zebek is a continuous settlement protocol built on top of Solana. We are small, but people know us within Solana. And recently, I also started working on a high throughput modular blockchain, a company called Eclipse, where we'll be able to help every major company in the world spin out their own app chain. And here we are talking about a bunch of different things.
So you said something really interesting there, and I think it's a great place to start, which is you built your own NFT marketplace, but you're no longer doing NFT marketplaces. Can you tell me sort of what did you see as the opportunity, and then why did you leave it behind?
So if you look at first Ethereum white paper, right? Like everyone was talking about, look, at some point, every single contract in the world is going to go powered by smart contract, and smart contract is going to leverage that, and any inefficiency that exists in this market is going to be priced out, right? And that was very exciting. And people were talking about creating decentralized LegalZoom or decentralized Christie's, right? And that was basically the NFT marketplace. Once you get in there, we start to realize that the actual art buyers are kind of not interested in NFTs, right? Because they are the ones who like to have those art in their wall, and that didn't exist. So hence the people that were keen on NFT marketplaces the buyers were just traders, right? People who were just trying to make quick bucks. And at that point, you start to see a really interesting problem there. The ones who are building it, people like me, I'm not an artist. I never needed an NFT marketplace. I was trying to help people, right? But technically, do I need it? Wasn't an artist who was not making money, and I was struggling, and this marketplace was gonna make my life better. No, I was just a tech guy building this, right? So that was the point I realized the ones who were building it didn't needed it. The ones who needed it don't know how to build it. Hence, it puts me in a position of power, and I would always build the platform to extract value out of it, right? And it started to, now you start to see, I will try to put as high platform fee as possible. And then Grant over here is like, hold on, Sam is making money. I'm going to build the same thing as well because, open source. I'm going to fork this. I'm going to call it Grantverse NFT Marketplace, right? And now he's going to charge, I was charging 10%, he's going to charge 7%, and then Chris is going to charge 5%. And then at some point, it's a race to bottom. The problem with the race to bottom was NFTs don't have, within the smart contract of NFT itself, there's no price built on for the artist royalties, right? Artist royalties are always listed within the marketplace because that's how we can talk more about why that is the case, but that's how it works. The problem is, at some point, NFT marketplace started happening where you were the platform was you know what? We're not going to charge artist fees. If Chris and Grant agree on price, they should be able to sell asset without giving the royalties to Sam, who actually created it, right? And then you start to see the real problem with NFTs. The NFT problem is if creators are not making money, then they are not going to maintain community, right? And you start to see NFTs as the same thing as Instagram, right? Because are artists making any money from the Instagram post? Most likely not, right? They use that post to attract people so that they can send it to their website where they can sell merch, right? Same thing with YouTube. A lot of YouTube videos are not monetized. But what they do is link in the bio, go buy this t-shirt, right? So you start to see similar patterns being built around here because now creators are not making from the NFT, they're making money from the tokens that they launch on the side, from the community that they have built, right? So These were not clear, but we were already seeing some form of it. And that was the reason why I thought, like, you know what? I'm not passionate enough to try to solve this problem. It's not the passion enough. It's just that I am not educated enough to be able to solve this problem. So hence I was just like, let's step back and let the people who are way, way more well versed than me, way more educated than me, try to solve it.
Do you think that there's a utility, Sam, that could save that perspective though, right? And then that's kind of my argument now, right? Is my argument here is, and I'm not talking in regards to gaming NFTs, because I do think gaming NFT, there is a home for royalties, there's a home for marketplace share, there's a home for real utility with gaming NFTs. But I think what we're seeing right now, all eyes are on the PFP projects, right? Your Bored Apes, but these are Ethereum. But let's talk about Solana, since you're a Solana guy. You have DAA, Degenerate Apes. You have maybe DGods, right, which I'm a holder of, huge fan of the team, and Solana Monkey Business, right? The list could go on. But there's nothing that really separates those projects in terms of pure utility that I think saves them, right? And so other than the community aspect, and you touched on that, is there anything in your eyes that you go, hey, look, if a project could come out with something, right, where the NFT is actually your token or your gated mechanism into that utility, that could possibly respark the royalty conversation to where projects are incentivized now to go and produce more utility? Do you think that now we're going to see a drop off?
Yeah, no, we're already seeing that, right? DGods with Dust token.
Yeah.
Right? That was one of the most interesting economic experiment that I've ever seen on chain, right? And it DGods went to almost 2 SOL and all the way went to 325 SOL, right? And that community building was all powered by additional utility generation. So hence, and that I called that not the DGod route, I called them the Yuga Labs route, right? Because it's what basically everyone is trying to do. The problem is not every project has money like that. Not every project has money to be able to go out there and raise $300 million to be able to launch your own token, launch your own game, launch your own metaverse. Hence, you have to rely on other game companies, and other game companies don't have incentives to let you play in that. I would just rather launch my own. I would launch my own marketplace. I'll launch my own PFPs, and I'll launch my own games. That's how most game companies are going to start thinking about it. So right now we are in this real problem of what is the real utility of this besides I have the picture and you have the picture, and purely the value for a lot of these PFPs are coming from, one is community driven aspect, two is the speculation, and third thing is this pure financial nihilism, right? If my watch can be worth $1 million, then a picture of my monkey and living on blockchain can be worth $1 million as well. No one can decide the true value of a product. Right. So these things are the ones, but I totally agree towards your point of I think the additional utility is exactly what I was talking about. I didn't know what to build, hence I am letting everyone else to figure it out. And I will see quite a lot of this experiment on what this exact utility is going to be. And with in Solana, people are launching a wave where you can buy traits, right? So let's say I have a monkey with sunglasses. Now you can swap that with monkey with a hat, and for that I will pay a set fee. So these things are going to come up, but what's going to really always going to happen is people will always concentrate towards the attributes that everyone wants. When everyone wants the same attribute, that attribute will go down in value. It's just a cycle, right? And what it's doing is it's gamifying the system. But at some point, I would not want my monkey to have more than 20 features. I'm tired of swapping features, right? So there's not that long-term aspect of it, and I feel the community is figuring out what it should be and what it could be, because I think that's the bigger argument.
Yeah, that's interesting that you point that out, because that's what you're kind of seeing right now with DGods and dead gods, right? When DGods first transitioned to dead gods, it was everyone wanted to have a dead god, right? You wanted to kill your god, and then you wanted to pay the 1,000 deaths and do it. And then now that every dead god is now dead, and essentially people are now after DGods, right? Because they're alive still. There's that FOMO. There's almost that FOMO exclusivity. Do you think where do you see the landscape of things then, right? It almost sounds from you NFTs could be in a bear market longer than maybe even some of us expect that are kind of inside NFTs. What is your current evaluation of things, and where do you think these communities lead to? Do you think they just start it's a bloodbath in terms of trying to get your money back and trading, or do you think that, you know, something steps in and there's a greater utility? What is your kind of your pulse for maybe the next couple months?
I think the bloodbath will begin for sure, because not every community has resources like, you know, Frank from the DGOD, right? Like, you know, not every community has a tight community like that. So what we will see is like a lot of these low cap like NFT project will die out, because that's how it's gonna be, right? Like, you know, in the bear market, it's always low cap token tank, right? The founders like cash out, and the community is like stuck with the bag, right? In the classic sense. So we will see like the remaining companies now, what they have is like the people who bought at $40,000-$50,000 worth of piece. Now they have to choose, like, do I hold on to this investment, or I cash out $5,000? And you can cash out $5,000, not a problem. But the thing is, as long as the team is believing in it and building on it, I think, you know, it'll bounce back. Because look at DGOD, you know, after they launched, they went to 10, and then they went to back to 2, and then they went to 327, right? So that should be the story for a lot of these founders. Like, it's an experiment, you know. People are figuring things out, and some people don't like this unpredictability, right? People like the sense of like security, right? Like, okay, I like it, you know, like I like it because I know what's going to happen tomorrow morning. I know the release schedule of the token. I know what the founder is going to do. I know how many years the protocol has in terms of treasury. No one likes to buy things from a black box. And some of these NFT projects are going to look like that. And now it's going to be the question of, like, you know, do you like to hold on to the black box, or just, you know, offload that and just in the classic sense, take a L?
So is there a way to automate it? That, I mean, so the idea, I think that there is this idea, right, that when NFTs first came around, all the coverage you read was like, hey, this is great for artists because they no longer just make money only on the initial sale, right? Like, they can get, like a musician gets residuals, or an actor gets residuals right down the road. An artist that could then, you know, help participate in sort of the accrual of value of their particular piece of art, their digital art, right? But then we learned, you know, and it was highlighted recently, that no, actually those fees are only incorporated at the marketplace level. They're not on chain. Is there a technical solution that comes into this then? Can that move on to the chain, or do you see that, right? Like, I see what you're saying, which is the NFTs is a race to zero, right? Like, no one wants to charge more than the other person, because then why would you go to that other person, right? So is there a technical solution that you see happening for this?
There should be, right? The idea is, like, right now, the real problem exists from, like, I have a wallet number 1 and I have a wallet number 2. I move my token from one wallet to another wallet. How would the artist know that Sam didn't sold his NFT to Grant? That's the biggest question, right? So now you come with the existential problem of crypto of, like, do we do know your customer? Do we do KYC, right? Because KYC could completely solve that problem. The problem is, the moment you do KYC, a lot of people are not going to buy NFT. Are we going to give special perks to the KYC NFT holders? You know, these are all solvable, like, ideas, right? The only problem this all is going to create is, the moment you do KYC, the tax issues starts coming in, and then people start, like, not buy and trade, right? That's the one. Now, then the other side is do we create some form of contract in which, like, you know, you're able to swap between, like, this much wallets, and after that, or you need a confirmation from wallet 1 and wallet 2 every time you do the transaction, right? Like, it's like, there can be all these different things that you can figure out, but the thing is, like, technological solution can exist, but right now I don't see any. And,
all right.
and now, like, at first code used to be law. Turns out now it's not. It's more of a narrative is being changed. Like, well, the social code is a law, and you know, exploiting smart contract level vulnerabilities to exploit the creator is not the right choice. Like, that's basically what people are thinking. But I still think there's a major case for NFTs. Like, might not be for artists, might be for something else, right? Doesn't, like, kill the technology. What I'm saying is, like, it was a great experiment, and we have to start looking into, like, how can we save this amazing technology we built and we support it. And while the problem for artists is being solved, we should start to look outward and start to look for different use cases that can make this, like, there is a way to solve this problem. I'm telling you, there is actually a way to solve this problem. And like to make sure like NFT exists, like one of that I clearly see right now is watches, right? Imagine if Rolex issues NFT for every one of those watches, and every time you sell the watch, you need to also sell the NFT. Like you need to move the NFT, else the watch is not going to be authenticated. You know, Rolex will be able to fetch another $400 million a year in royalties from there, right? And for the buyer, I'm more than happy to pay like 10% fee if I know for the fact this is authenticated by Rolex. How would I not know that Grant just bought this NFT bought the watch from some like off market and like sold it to me for like $17,000, right? And so there are some like use case for these like, you know, luxury item, but for artists, I think there are like some technological innovation that needs to happen, or if not some social innovation.
That's interesting. Let's shift gears for a little bit here real quick. You recently left Silicon Valley to head out to the Chicago area. What made you leave this, you know, the center of the tech world behind?
Wow, there's a lot of like things, right? One was like once the bear market started coming in, it's not been bear market. I actually like thought about moving to Chicago a little bit early on. One thing I was kind of seeing was everyone was building the same thing and everyone was thinking alike, and it's great. But at some point, you don't see new ideas, and that's very scary, right? So for me, I wanted to be far away from the people that I've lived for 5 years and the ideas that I've seen for 5 years, so that new ideas and new perspective will help me think new things, right? Hence, once I moved to Chicago, you know, we built Eclipse, you know, new place, new ideas, right? And besides Eclipse, there are like multiple other projects that we are like we are contributing towards. So one was like get new ideas, you know, get out of Silicon Valley and just to see rest of America, because turns out people outside of Silicon Valley also have good ideas, and people outside of Silicon Valley also work hard, and it's surprisingly cheaper too. So and they're nicer. Actually, someone told me that people in East Coast are not nice but are helpful, right? But people in West Coast are nice but they're not helpful. The example of this is like I'm driving my car breaks down in the highway, and people in the East Coast, they will be like, what an idiot! Like his tire is like, you know, his tire is not working, blah blah blah. And they will see you not being able to fix it properly, and they will at first like car side you for like 5 minutes, and they will help you fix it. But you have the same thing happens in California. It's gonna be like, oh my God, oh I feel so bad for him, you know, that his car broke down. So let me just like scoot over faster so that I don't have to see him. That's kind of how. I think that's
true.
Kind of
This is true.
That's kind of what my hypothesis is about, like two coasts. And I think moving here, I see like people a lot nicer, and I feel like it's a good change of pace.
So I'm in the Bay Area. So I actually am curious though, because whenever you say like, oh, you know, we're out of Silicon Valley, there's this mystique, right? Like whenever you hear a project was made out of Silicon Valley, you just like automatically give it that extra layer of credibility. And I know you know exactly what I'm talking about, Sam. And Chris lived in San Francisco for some time too. So you guys will totally relate to this. Sam, when you say new idea or the same ideas were kind of reoccurring, tell me what seemed to be those same ideas? And then to piggyback, this is kind of a two-part question. I'm actually curious to know if you stayed here, you think that Eclipse would not have been born, and what ideas were you hearing in Chicago that did lead to Eclipse? Because that is very interesting.
Yeah, I'll tell you, right. In Silicon Valley, the ideas people were talking about was like wallets, because they're like, oh, we need wallets that would be, you know, bring the next billion customers, like the next billion people in Web3, right? And I'm just like, that doesn't sound like a product to build. That sounds more like more like a tea that you are like, you know, selling your LPs. That's kind of what I felt, right? But I come here, and you will go to a room where, like, you know, people are managing millions and billions of dollars, and they see clear problems. There's like, look, you are still not able to, you know, bring entire CME on chain, right? You are not able to see specified, like, you know, app use cases, right? The transaction costs are still high. There's no interoperability, right? People here talk like, you know, facts in the right word. Like, you know, they talk facts, and they will be nice to you, but when it comes to, like, you know, saying right, like good things, they will say facts, and they're not scared of like offending you on that, because they're okay offending you today so that you can actually think better. I kind of saw that here, which I kind of didn't saw in Silicon Valley. People there are a little too, people will be more chummy to you, but they're not saying anything interesting. They will say the same thing that they listen in 5 podcasts, and now they're going to say that in a more interesting manner. And I'm like, oh, cool. Like, which one of these ideas were your own?
Very fair. So one of the topics that we wanted to cover, especially with you, because I don't want to get the number wrong. How much money have you raised for Zebic? Because it is some astounding number. And I wanted to talk about also the money you've raised for Eclipse. And a lot of people watch this may go, hey, look, like we hear about people raising money. What goes into it? How hard is it? Like, can you give us the TLDR on like your experiences with it?
Yeah, so for Zebic, we have raised almost a little bit over $40 million. For Eclipse, we raised $15 million. And I think like the rule number 1 is you don't raise money on just because you want to raise money. You raise money on a vision, right? No one wants to give you valuation what is today, give you valuation for what it could be tomorrow. And a lot of founders miss out on that. It's just like, and one of the things I always say is like when you are raising money, don't sell your company, sell your vision, because that's when it starts to make sense, right? Like no one wants to invest at a $100 million company hoping it's going to get $120 million, right? Like, I'll just buy S&P 500 like index fund and wait for 3 years. That will happen automatically, right? I don't want to invest in this most risky asset. People invest in this risky asset because of they have a zealot founders who can, do something like, they will be able to pull some magic and miracles. So rule number 1 is just like, try to get the warm intros, because smart people know other smart people, right? And go to your smart people who knows investors, because that's the easiest way of doing things. Rule number 2 is try to see lay of land. Make sure that you're not you're not rebuilding same thing someone else has already built, right? And your project can be like, mix up 20 other companies' ideas, but at least have your vision honest, because your vision cannot be copied from 20 other people, because though like it's like a battle, right? Like look at, I always like give this example of like Roman armies, right? Like the guy, like some soldier, like the low level soldier is like fighting for this general. Like he hasn't seen him in 8 months. He doesn't even know that the guy exists or not. Might be dead in the other part of Rome, right? But the guy is still fighting, right? Because they all have common vision, right? And the reason is because the common vision has been like so deeply ingrained in their head that they will do it no matter what. And I kind of feel like investors kind of want to see that. It's just like the very, very passionate founders who will do anything to make things happen, right? And kind of like that is one. And the other part is like know when to raise money for what, right? Like, and you don't want to be a stale product, right? It's like I always say, fundraising is like, Grant, you are really big into fashion. Now it's a Supreme drop, right? You got to make it look like a Supreme drop. You cannot make it look like an item you can buy in Uniqlo.
You want it to be hype. You want it to be exclusive. Have that fire.
Exactly, because the moment they can feel that deck has been passed around by 750 times, they think that they can buy it at a clearance item at 80% discount, right? We don't want that to happen. So I think there is a sense of like creating exclusivity, but in the same time, the most important part is a vision and mission, right? Once you get that, and most important part is like founders and product like fit should be there. It's like I might want to build spaceships, right? But no one should invest in me if I'm building spaceship. At least right now, I don't know anything about it, right? In 20 years from now, I get like enough education and I come up with some interesting design, and yeah, that makes sense. But right now, I don't know anything about it, right? Like just because I want to cure cancer, no one should invest money on me right now because I have no idea about it, right? Probably like. So there should be like the founders and founder idea fit should exist, and then like you build around that and have some products. Like it depends on what level of fundraising you are doing and where you're raising from. Because once that matches, like fundraising process is actually surprisingly easier than you exist, easier than a lot of people make it look like in Twitter.
So where did you raise your money then? Was it, speaking of Silicon Valley versus Chicago, where did your money come from?
I've met only like 4 of my investors. I've raised money for like 47.
Okay.
It's a lot of that is Zoom call, right? Like you need to have like, you need to have honest product plan and people will invest in you. And there's enough capital in the market that if there's a genuine founder, people will invest. A lot of my investors are like all around the world, like, and most of the time I don't even ask them where they're from. It's like you're traveling or something like that. But like, oh, cool. Where are you based? And they're like, yeah, traveling right now. I'm like, oh, great. Like, So yeah, like investors are all around the world. There's so much money in in this space that raising money should not be a problem. I think having the idea that is raise worthy is the hard part, and the team and the product that to back that.
I was going to say, what is your perspective on kind of tying both conversations together, because you kind of do come from an NFT space as well? One thing that I don't see as much as I think that maybe we could see, are NFT projects now going to be more inclined to raise money before going to market, right? Because before you would be able to just kind of launch a project on Solana. Sam, when Solana was like $220, $250, right? At its height, right? Gosh, remember that, RIP. But, if you had an NFT and it was like even a 10,000 PFP, you remember this, Sam, like you would just sell out on Magic Even's homepage right away. And that was up until probably 6 months ago, you were still able to really do that, or maybe 8 months ago. Do you think that there is a place for some of these smaller NFT projects to raise money? And what does that road look like? And do you think we see more of that?
Yeah, so I would say like there's two aspects, right? One is there's actually a need for that, and because now the money is with the investors than the consumers, right? There's not much liquidity in the space. But at the same time, people are still like raising money like this. Like people are still dropping NFTs and things like that. Now the question is, founders needs to be a little bit more gritty and sustain longer. And investor will invest in these NFT PFP project. The problem is like, why am I like? They need to ask themselves a question: why am I investing in this? Right. And now we have the world in which like Bored Ape and Doodles, all these people are raising money at like outrageous valuation. That's when things start to get crazy.
Sam, there's one thing that I've been thinking about a little bit recently, and like both of us kind of coming from a DeFi protocol background as well. What is your thoughts? This is what I've been thinking about in terms of 0% royalties and the incentive of spinning up a project to earn capital, but not being able to deliver on the roadmap. This kind of reminds me of the ICO days, right? Where like you'd have these shitty coins, they would drop, and then the community would be like, whoa, this might be a really big project. And then slowly but surely, you just saw the founders kind of tie away. The capital was like coming out of the community. Could we see more incentive for like, fishy people, shady people to launch these NFTs, be like, hey, here's the roadmap, but in 3 months down the line go, hey, we don't have any money from royalties, blame it on the royalties side, and then it becomes kind of this cat and mouse game. What do you think?
Oh yeah, it's already happening.
Yeah.
Like, you remember one NFT project, well, our founder died during the mid process.
And then the royalties came back, and he all of a sudden Jesus brought him back again. Chris,
that's gonna happen.
There was this founder. So what Sam's talking about, even though Sam knew about this, there was just like a project that minted, and they're like, hey, like this is crazy, but our founder died during our mint, and then like 2 hours later, they're like, oh wait, we sold out. Never mind, he actually came back to life, and then it's all we just found out 0% royalties came back. He died again. So it's like all our condolences. This is what I'm talking about. This is crazy. That's crazy stuff. Like Sam, like how, because nobody can, you don't have to dox. Like how common is that going to be? Like we're going to hear some crazy stories.
It's so like, I'm telling you, we should be prepared for one of the most outrageous things, because like back in the COVID time, it is like, oh, he got COVID and he will take all the money out.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like founder died is a new equivalent of COVID.
Dude,
I'm telling you.
Duquan running from everyone. This is going to be nothing to some of the stuff we hear. Like Duquan's going to be like laughing with us at these guys.
Yeah.
What is your take? Because sorry, Sam, is there something else you wanted to add?
No. I think like the way it's gonna go is, at some point it's gonna be like no KYC, but community-based vetting, right? So let's say if Frank from DGOT is like, you know what, I back this project. That's how it's gonna be. But what's the problem it's gonna create? It's gonna create like some form of social circle. Like I know Grant, so hence your username might be 0xHeart, right? And I'm like, yeah, 0xHeart. He's a great guy. His project, I know him, blah blah blah. And my my community standing is going to help your project being sold out. And then Grant is going to be like, oh, I know 0x Chris, he's like another cool guy, right? And Chris brings his friend, James brings, but it's just going to be friends and friends and friends and friends, right? Instead of like, the idea was total anonymous, right? Project where it's only based on merit. People are going to like, it's like people vote using their capital. That was the idea.
Right.
Right. And if the money gets lost, then they voted on wrong actors, right? That was the idea, but the money is so much now that it's scary that, like people are losing money left and right. So now the question we should ask ourselves is like, is this the new gambling? Yes, it's already happening, right? Now, how do we stop that? That's always like, that's basically like, what me and like a lot of my friends who are who are early DeFi and early NFTs, we talk about this all the time, and we just seem to point out, we can't point out on how can we solve this issue of decentralization, like a complete anonymous based NFT launch with non-ruggable ness built onto it.
Right. I mean, you see that now. You bring up something really interesting, right? Where like, if even an influencer, right? Like someone that's friends with me is Ice Knife, and I'm sure you probably follow him as well. Like he's a great person, but any project that he signs off on, people flock to it, right? And the same thing with Frank. He did that with Vandals and as well as Liberty Square, the Squirrel project, right? Yeah. And like overnight, with no crazy utility, it's great art and everything, but there's no, groundbreaking utility. But just Frank saying, hey, I bought some of this, right? Or you see Function complain about wallet trackers, like you see this and it's starting to happen. And so I think that as we move forward, I totally agree. Like you're going to see way more community vetting or people trying to find the docs of other people. Like that could also be what we see.
Awesome. Well, that is I think a great place for us to end. Sam, this has been a great conversation. Thank you so much for being a part of it. If people want to find you online or connect with you in some way or learn more about you, what's the best place for them to go?
Yeah, they can reach out to me in Twitter, like Sam_Thapaliya. Just drop me a DM. I'm pretty responsive. Like, as long as you're not selling, it's like, as long as you're not giving me $50 to like tweet about your NFT project, I'm pretty good. Like, I am more than happy to answer any question.
Sam is for the people.
Yeah, for the people.
Awesome. Well, Sam Thapaliya, thank you so much. We appreciate it. Grant, as always.
Thank you.
And everybody have a good weekend. Thank you.